Welcome to the Practice of Behavior Analysis podcast, a platform for connection, dissemination, and collaboration.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Chicago School ABA newsletter video podcast. Today, we'll be talking to members from our student board. We're excited to discuss ways in which students can become more involved in the Chicago School and be active members of our community. So it's really great to have you guys on here. We have Lucas and Kelly and my co-host Grace. I don't want to take any more of your time. So without anything else, just please take a few moments to introduce yourselves, your role with the student board, and just a little bit about your research here at the Chicago School. And whoever wants to jump in.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Frank. I have been a board member since the summer of 2019. I started the PhD program in the spring of 2019 and learned about this during residency, which was in the spring of 2019, and thought it was really interesting, so I decided to join immediately. My current research, I am looking at professional behaviors of youth cheerleaders. I'm really interested in behavior analysis and sports as it pertains to the participants as well as it pertains to the parents of the youth participating in sports. And I'm also working on research on implicit racial biases between urban and rural populations. And I'm going to be doing some research on implicit biases between various ages within the same population. So from urban and rural, I'm going to be looking the difference between teenagers and their parents, what their implicit biases are. So I'm really interested in that, and it's been very eye-opening, and yeah, I love it. On to you, Lucas.
Awesome.
All right, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Lucas Evans. I have a really similar origin story to Kelly. We both started in the same cohort, and we both went to the same first residency. We both saw the same presentation about student board, and we both decided to sign right up. So we both kind of have very similar stories as far as how we got into this. My particular interests as far as research go, I did my thesis on essential elements of behavior support plans, so most of my emphasis has been on professional practice. And I'm also very interested in instructional design, data analysis, quantitative models of behavior, and I think Kelly and I are going to be doing a research project on equivalence-based instruction. At least we keep saying that. I really hope that we do. We really need to talk about that, Kelly. And that's really all about me. Technically, I guess, serving as like the interim co-chair of the committee right now, just while we kind of get to elections, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. Other than that, that's me.
Thank you, Kelly and Lucas. So I'm Grace. Grecia is my name. You can call me Grace. I'm entering my second year, and it's been a roller coaster with 2020. So I'm still working on my thesis. And Kelly, it's interesting that you mentioned sports because I converted my thesis to a meta-analysis, and I'm doing it on tag-teach procedures in sports and performing arts. So very interesting stuff in sports and ABA that I have come across. So my first question for you guys is, what is the purpose of the student board?
We actually do have a mission statement. The mission statement of the student board is the ABA PhD Student Representative Board serves to provide a voice to the students within the program as a conduit between the students and the faculty. The goal of the board is to assist both students and faculty to create the best academic experience possible. So it really is just a way for the students to have a voice and to, get some ideas out there of things they would like to see, and, communicate with the faculty, maybe some things that they would, like to express, instead of, the faculty being bombarded with maybe a whole bunch of emails. They could bring it to us, and then we can bring it to them, and then the faculty, we can work together just to make this a better system for everybody, as a whole.
So you address different ways of how you can be involved. Have you found any value for yourself in being involved? Any maybe like relationships you've created that are valuable?
Yeah. So there's a couple value added things with being a part of the student board. So the first one is Kelly mentioned that voice that we can give the student body in putting that forth to faculty in the program. And I know there's several members of our student body that have kind of currently working on big projects outside of school or have plans to start things after school. And so doing your doctoral work is a fantastic time to think about, like, what do you want to do with your life? How do you build something that you can be proud of? And that same work can happen in the program. So we have the opportunity. I mean, it's not carte blanche, it's not a blank check, but we have some opportunity to have input in how this program develops. And so not only can we benefit from the program that we have, but we can look at it and think about ways that it can be even better. And we have the opportunity to put those things forward. And at least my perspective, and I'll let Kelly add additional thoughts, but at least from my perspective, we've found the faculty to be very open and willing to hear things, make changes that make sense, that are within their ability to do so. And so it's been a really collaborative experience to just have a hand in kind of shaping the program for us, but then also the program for folks who come in after us.
That's awesome. One of our goals with the newsletter is to bridge some of that, bring some collaboration. So I know that for first year students, sometimes that can be hard, like just trying to find your place within our school community. So what advice do you have for students who want to be more involved? And how do they know where to start?
You mean more involved with the student board?
Yeah, more involved with the student board, or with like the community in general, with like the Chicago school community. That is essentially what the student board is kind of doing, like kind of bringing those people together so that they can be more involved, correct?
Right, correct. So, you know, what I have found is that I know, getting your master's is nerve-wracking in one, but getting your PhD is super nerve-wracking. And I think what I have found is getting to know so many people within the program as well as the faculty, and finding out that while, yes, this is a serious program, everybody is not that serious. And everybody has a lot of similar interests, and we're all interested in, making people's lives better and making the society better, doing all of these wonderful things, that I think it's important to connect with people that are like-minded. So not only with fellow, students, but also faculty. Find the faculty that you connect with. Don't just settle for, somebody who is maybe your advisor, but if you find a faculty that you really connect with, making sure that you reach out to them and form a bond with them, because it's so helpful. And finding a group of people to really stay close with. I mean, I've met these guys, early on, and it has been so helpful in every area. I mean, this is tough for all of us, but if you wanted to get involved in the student board, you could reach out to your advisor or the newsletter. Watch those emails that come through. I always used to make jokes that those Chicago school emails, when you see the banner come up, that, back when I was in the master's program through the Chicago school, I'd be like, oh, another email. But they really are informative. There's a lot in there and a lot of ways to get involved. And it really is helpful because it doesn't make you feel so alone. Because a lot of times people think, that, I don't belong, or they have that imposter syndrome, or they think that everybody's smarter than they are. And once you get to know people, it really just makes your comfort level so much better, and makes the program easier as a whole. So,
and I think it's like that you mentioned about reaching out to people and professors, and not just sticking to maybe your advisor, reaching out to other people. And I think a lot of times it's nerve-wracking to do so. I know, at least for me in my first year, reaching out to a professor that I might have not met at residency or had not taken a class with was kind of intimidating, but doing so opened a lot of doors. And you'd be surprised how down to earth and helpful, and how much insight they can bring into your research and what you're doing at the school, and even outside of our school. So really important to create those connections. So if you could pick a situation or just one particular highlight that you've had at the Chicago school in regards to your involvement with the student board, what could it be?
That's such a hard question. Um, Gosh, I think I would have to pick two things. The first one being able to give back to the program that I feel like I'm getting a lot from as far as education. So it's a way to serve. So we all are pretty well versed in serving our communities because that's what we want to do. We want to help people, but we also have an obligation as behavior analysts to serve our professional communities, and being a part of the student board helps meet that value for me. The other thing that it does, I think, is give me some leadership experience. So it's puts me in situations that maybe I'm not comfortable with, and forces me to have to work with other people across time zones, outside of your day job and then your other day job, which is school, to do important projects that you care about, which all of those skill sets that you can cultivate by having to do all of these project-based and committee-based projects is just something you can take with you when you get out of school, because hopefully you're still doing this sort of stuff once you leave. Hopefully you're linking up with your local ABA chapter. Hopefully you're continuing to have contact with the people that you became close with in your cohort, and you're starting companies and you're doing research and whatever. Like, this is the time to kind of force yourself, right? You can take advantage of the fact that you have all these contingencies that force you to do things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise do, and you can establish that in your history, and then you can take that with you once you leave. So that's what I've tried to do in my program, not just with the student board, but just in general.
Wonderful. Do you want to add anything to that, Kelly?
No, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing for me. I have to say that I've really enjoyed seeing how much we have been able to actually make a change and make an impact, whether it, be a little bit slow at times, to see, how people can come together when a lot of people who are different in some ways, but also alike in some ways, who probably aren't used to working with a team of people like you. You know what I mean? To come together and be able to be like, okay, we're going to do this, and we just move along and we move it quick, and we try to, and it's really neat to see. It's a really neat group to see. And I really like what you said, Lucas, about, it helps give you the experience to take this into future roles that we could do, within our communities. Because I do think that it's really important, something I would like to see, to have more, behavior analysts and more government related roles to help out with, policy and things like that, which I know that you're interested in, Lucas. But I think it's so important, and this just kind of gives you a little stepping stone to that. And I'd love to see more people get involved to kind of get that experience, so we can make an impact for the future.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I 100% agree with that. I think that since I joined the newsletter team, I've gained some other skills that otherwise I would not have, and I made connections with people that otherwise I would not have, or they might have taken longer to happen. So I'm all for developing more activities that bring students and professors together and faculty together. So what are other activities that you guys are in charge of developing for the student board?
Okay, so one of the things that we've experienced, and Kelly mentioned this, is it's a good experience, it's a painful experience, but things move slower than you would like. So that's actually, I think, a really fantastic experience people need to have, is that important things that have lots of moving parts take a long time to get in place. And one of the things that we've been working on for over a year now is to try to put together some sort of continuing education credit series. And I know that, people are paying lots and lots of money to get lots of CEUs, and so they probably don't need like numbers of CEUs, but maybe they have things that they're interested in, and they probably aren't getting as many things like supervision or ethics, depending on what courses they're taking. And so we wanted to provide a venue to talk about things that take what we learn in class, put a spin on it, or take it beyond what we learn in class, or learn about or hear about topics that aren't particularly prominent in what we're learning about. So what about populations outside of autism and intellectual development disabilities? So what about like behavioral systems? What about big data and what machine learning can do for behavior analysts? What about sports, which we've already talked about in this podcast, is a super rich area that we can talk about, that we touch a little bit in the coursework, and you can touch it more if you choose to focus on it, but it's not a standard part of the curriculum. It's not a standard part of a lot of things that you see in Java. Another thing that Jess, I think you mentioned one of the last times we talked about it was just general health and well-being and mindfulness. All of those things are really important topics, especially in the midst of 2020 and all of us hunkered down in our, what I'm going to assume to be our bunkers at some point. Like all those are really important topics. And if behavior analysis is going to save the world, like we've got to start covering and hitting and looking under the dome and not at the tails, as Pat Fryman would say. And so we've got to look at that stuff. And what better way to do that than to have this kind of series that tries to get a little bit outside of what the standard course sequence has. It gives us the opportunity to maybe get some invited speakers that are experts in those other areas, gives students the opportunity to talk about some of the cool research that they're doing. So that's really kind of the, maybe it's pie in the sky, but that's like the dream. That's like our ideal. We've been working on that for a year. I think we're pretty close. I don't know when this will air, but I'm going to go on the record and say that I think within the next 6 months, we'll have something available. I feel it. And if it's not then, it'll probably come out after I leave. So I don't know, but I hope it's going to come out.
I hope so too. And I think it's, like you mentioned, just bringing to light a lot of topics that aren't really talked about outside of the typical autism and developmental disabilities. And part of the newsletter's goal is also to expose or bring to light some of those topics as well. I don't know about you guys, but we write a paper, almost every term, and we can pick some pretty cool and interesting topics and spend so much time on them, and then they just get filed into, our computer. And the newsletter is a great opportunity to showcase some of that work as well. So definitely lots of opportunities, and I really hope the CEU happens within our
I do too.
Our time here.
when you just said something that I think sparked a really great idea that people should think about. So you talk about we write a lot of papers, and that is so true. One of the things that I've tried to do this year, I've not done a great job, but I've really tried, is to think about what can I write about, or how can I write about something, and then what can I do with it after that. So I'm over just writing stuff and putting it somewhere else. I want to write it for a purpose. So there's lots of purposes. So for example, if you're doing a review article, there's no reason why that couldn't be publication worthy when you're done. So you could have a finished product that you could shop around. It doesn't have to be in a journal. You could start a blog. You could, join Medium and post on. So what can you do with some of the stuff that you're thinking and writing so much about? How do you get added bonus about it? Because you're right. If it goes in a file drawer and you walk away from it, you'll forget about it. And hopefully you've, accumulated that knowledge, but other than that, it's just wasted effort. And so I've tried to approach assignments in a way that not only moves what I care about forward. So I try to pick topics that are either in line with my research or my interests, not just because it's an easy topic, but also what can I do with it after that.
You can submit it to the newsletter.
Yes. Perfect connection, Kelly. Perfect connection.
And I can review it for you. I will call shotgun on that, and I will review it. Another thing that we do is we're collaborating with the peer mentoring program that everybody, when you first start the program, that you get assigned to a peer mentor. And so we have talked about linking up with the peer mentors to hopefully extend this more throughout the whole PhD program and not just in the beginning, right? And so we want to help assist them in this, just so we can, help bridge that gap between the student representative board and the peer mentors, and just assist in trying to, make things a little bit easier for everybody. Because as you first get in the program, like I said, it's nerve-wracking, and it's a very hard time. And the more people that can help with new people and even existing people, even for us, there's so many difficult times. So if you have somebody that's further along in the program that can help, if that you could even just reach out to and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, what did you do for this? We want to be there to be able to help for that as well.
Yes, and I remember learning in my first residency about peer mentors, and I don't remember just being able to find information on the website or in the resources cafe. So as far as all this, like the student board, peer mentoring, any upcoming events that you guys have, or ideas, or anything for us to access, will we have to email somebody personally, or is there somewhere where we can access this information?
So there is a person you can email, but even better, we're going to make sure that this information is easy to find on the Resource Cafe. I think that's where we've decided it will live. I hope so, because I just said it. Maybe now it will have to be that because I just said it. But the ABA Resource Cafe, that shell and canvas, it seems like the best place to put it. We're going to make sure that it's there. So you'll have access to, I believe, this recording, an infographic, or kind of like a short informational document that kind of talks about some of the stuff we talked about tonight, and some additional stuff about the board, including when it meets. And then as we have things that are coming up, like hopefully that CU event or anything else, there'll be information there as well. So it should be a one-stop shop to find anything you would want to know about the student board, and coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucas and Kelly, for coming and taking some time out of your day and discussing about all the stuff that you guys have going on, and hopefully the CU event. So we're excited to learn a lot more. We will have the link for that infographic on our YouTube channel, and perhaps we'll also add it to our newsletter, so it's easy to find that way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Also, does this mean that I'm a celebrity now?
Yes, famous.
Yep.
That's all I really want to know. YouTube star.
We don't really, like, we call it's been like a YouTube, but it is also a podcast, but it's really a Zoom meeting. So.
Yeah.
Hey, whatever,
Whatever.
Like a vlog.